Thank you. And good afternoon to all from my point of view. And first of all, I'd like to thank Minna and her colleagues that I had this great opportunity to tell almost everything we know here in fire rescue services about the cooperation with the voluntary participants. And I'm going to use some shortage. First of all, the voluntary fire brigades is lined VFB letters and the voluntary rescue services VRC letters. So I hope that you understand what I'm going to tell you about this cooperation. I heard that there are some foreign colleagues also on the line, and that's why I'm going to give a short presentation and tell you briefly about the activities we are doing in fire and rescue services here in Finland at this moment. First of all, this whole system in Finland is funded or financed by municipalities till the end of this year. And in the beginning of next year, the finance is coming from the government's side. So this is going to change a lot. But at this moment, we are doing this kind of system financed by municipalities. And the summary of my region is located on the right-hand side of this picture. We have at this moment 83 fire stations on my area, and there are approximately 1,800 firefighters and rescue paramedics at all time. From that figure, there's something like 1,700 voluntary people, and the others are full-time firefighters and paramedic workers. And our area is located there in the southwest Finland region, and that is number 5, which I'm talking about at this moment. I'm very proud that the organization and the amount of volunteer organization is quite large on my area, and that's why we are very keen doing this cooperation between each other, and we both sides feel that it's very important to support each other on administration levels, and especially on the field level when something accident and that kind of things happens. Some figures from our rescue services from last year. There is first of all risk management inspectors, fire inspectors. We are doing approximately about 17,000 annually. This varies a lot according to that corona or COVID virus, but the medieval is something like 17,000. Emergency services takes place and gets calls approximately 38.5 thousand times per year, and rescue services is alarmed about 9,000 times per year. And those are our customer services figures in Southwest Finland fire and rescue services. And then we have a little presentation, or I have a little presentation about the cooperation, what we are doing between voluntary organizations and authorities. And I hope that it clarifies everyone's view what we are doing here in Southwest Finland. I have divided this voluntary organization in 2 parts. First of all, I would like to tell you about little bit about fire brigade, voluntary fire brigade activities, and then the other important topic is going to be that voluntary rescue services. I have on my region altogether 66 voluntary fire brigades, and as I mentioned, there is something 1,700 trained firefighters at preparedness all the time. As you can imagine, we are doing on the cooperation on the field on accidents, that kind of things. I calculated that about that 9,000 annual alarm calls we are doing in rescue services, something like 40-45% is taken care of by voluntary fire brigades. So that figure tells us that it's a very important organization while we are talking about this fire rescue services. And of course, on administration level, we have a lot of cooperation with the voluntary fire brigades. There are some topics written in that frame. We are planning together things. We are buying together things, and of course we are training together. So this cooperation is quite keen. The last sentence, which is written in that cooperation with voluntary fire brigades frame, it tells us that we have a very large development project going on at this moment, and I'm going to tell you about a little bit that in later. And then there's the voluntary rescue services, VRS, as I mentioned. This shortens is for me, and we have also quite a lot cooperation with this organization altogether. First of all, on administration level, our political board, which is officially named Regional Rescue Board, annually decides to give some financial payment to those different voluntary rescue services committees and actors. This is very important role when the society gives financial support at this moment, at this case, to those committees and actors. And then, of course, that I would like to say that most important thing is cooperation and activities on the field. And voluntary rescue services are led in different cases by different authorities here in Finland. For example, when people is missing in the woods or even in the cities, and no one knows where he or she is, the basic system is in Finland that police takes lead in that kind of thing and alarms the voluntary rescue services on the scene, which helps in every case. I would like to say police to help that missing person. On the marine side, on the sea side, there are a lot of I like to say voluntary rescue services committees which are taking place when something happens on the sea, and according our law, the Coast Guard is on those things in charge. And when it comes to the rescue services area or things are under rescue law, so the leading part is on our side, and that kind of things are, for example, accommodation during larger fires, which are taken care of voluntary rescue services. The different kind of support things during larger storms, and then there's a little bit a different or strange thing when fire and rescue service, voluntary rescue services have used, and those are water supply problems in certain municipalities. It's very important to give and to deal people rapidly information that don't drink water, it's poisoned or something like that. And in those cases, we have done very good cooperation with voluntary rescue services. And also on other administration level, we are dealing with voluntary rescue services is different kind of committees and councils. For example, regional council committee and different committees on our area are places where different authorities are also involved. So this is a very keen and tight way of doing cooperation. And this is a picture which gives to all quite a good picture about that cooperation, and especially that trust we are giving or we are having between. In this picture, sorry, this was an alarm call. I'm sorry. But this is a picture which gives you a view how we are dealing with the voluntary fire brigades. and all those blue highlighted how would I say marks are all their different boats, and they are taking care of voluntary fire brigades. So this is the most important information about this picture, that we have a solid trust with voluntary organization and fire rescue services. And of course, the training and that kind of things makes that basic we are dealing with. That we had a great opportunity last year to execute a Vellamo 21 exercise, which was how would I say, a kind of a joint Baltic coastal oil spill exercise, which lasted 1 week. That warm section lasted 1 week, and it was focused on practice on shallow water oil prevention. And then the one part of the train was how we are dealing with that international assistance, how we are asking for help, and how we are receiving that help in our fire and rescue services. And the third one was develop cooperation between voluntary organizations and authorities during that disaster. So, and as we got the feedback of this exercise, that it was quite good. So I'm very pleased that all those people, including voluntary organization representatives, did a great job, that we got this whole week exercise launched and executed, and the results were quite good. And this is one picture which shows the whole Vellamo 21 exercise combination. There were, as I mentioned, separate things we trained together. First of all, there's the oil spill exercise with volunteers, and then there was that HNS, which is shortened by the sentence Host Nation Support, which was the organization which we used asking for international help and assistance, and also take it in this exercise. And during that week, we had a webinar. There was a lot and high how would I say, high quality lesson speakers involved, and the week closed in Saamen 21 exercise, which was a practical exercise on the sea. And this was the whole weekend in one frame. And as I mentioned, I'm very pleased about the results we got from that exercise. And this is one picture which is taken from one brochure. It gives the picture how authorities and voluntary organizations are tied together in a larger accident. And this picture shows that in this case the leading response is on the rescue service authorities, but when we alarm this organization which we need, and in this case it is voluntary rescue services, they have their own leader who is in charge of their own organization. He or she gets orders from the leader, from the rescue services leader, and then the whole voluntary organization takes care of that certain task. So this is it's quite a simple way to say this, but this works very well in smaller cases. As I mentioned, for example, in police-led organizations, it goes like this, but it isn't that large amount of people. But anyway, this whole system is quite trained, quite functional. So I'm very pleased of this. Of course, this is in certain ways under preparation, but if we need it at this moment, for example, a larger disaster of oil spill or something like this, I'm quite sure that we are going to get very like this kind of organization to help us. And as I mentioned in my previous picture, I promised to give you a short presentation of the certain development project. which is focused on voluntary fire brigade development. And this shows how serious we are and how we want to support that voluntary organization, and in this case voluntary fire brigade system is going to take part also in with also 10 years or 50 years from now on. So it means that we are trying to, together with voluntary fire brigade people, do that kind of how do I say, proposals that our political leaders understand the importance of a voluntary fire brigade system. The same thing is, of course, the voluntary rescue services system, but this project is focused on fire brigade development project. And in briefly, it is shown here. This year, 2022, and next year, 2023, they are going to be quite important in this preparation. That's because there are the times when the political decisions are made, and I personally hope that our political people understand the importance of these voluntary organizations, and as I mentioned in this project, the voluntary fire brigade system, and make that kind of decisions that we have within 10 or 15 or 20 years as good system as we are having at this moment, at least. So this is the main objective of this whole project. And at this moment we have done this a little more than a year, and I'm quite pleased and satisfied that we are going to have very good proposals and that kind of things, so that those politics can make decisions from a good preparation. And this picture shows a little bit more detailed about this project, that we are doing cooperation with different organizations. In Finland, we all know that we have Swedish-speaking fire brigades, Finnish-speaking fire brigades. That is one direction we are dealing. We are cooperating things. Educational institutes, of course, our own fire and rescue services in one part in this project. We have a lot of rescue associations and federations which we take part in this project. Employees, it's very important. Municipalities and that kind of things. So all those organizations and actors I mentioned, we are dealing together in this year so that we can get that proposals ready for the political decision making. And one I would like to say interesting topic is innovations, and that means that we'd like to solve out during this project that what young people or child think at this moment about the future, and we'd like to know something about their understanding, something what they are thinking about their own future. That's very important to make those proposals and decisions for the future. So I'm looking forward that when we are starting this innovation, how would I say, sub-project, that what kind of results we are going to get. But that's one important thing of that future and those proposals. But that was quite in short and briefly told about the cooperation we are dealing with the voluntary organizations. And if Minna-Liina is okay for you, there might be some time for questions at this moment.
Yeah, we have. Thank you so much, Juha. It was a great presentation, and we have two good questions from Neil James. However, I will modify the first one a bit, as what is the biggest barrier preventing more people from volunteering might be better targeted for the next speakers.
Yes.
So I will ask you that based on your experience throughout the years, what kind of barriers has there been in incorporating the volunteers as part of your active rescue activities, and how have they been overcome in Southwest Finland or in Finland in general?
Perhaps the most highest barrier is the attitudes. When I started in fire rescue services back in 1980s or so, at that moment the voluntary term was it wasn't that nice. Firefighters thought that they are going to handle all things they are dealing in their daily work. They are doing by themselves. They don't need any volunteers, and volunteers are something like no education and that kind of things. That's why I would like to say that the attitudes were the highest barrier. If I look at that attitude changing at this moment, I'm quite satisfied that most of this kind of thinking is on the background.
Yeah.
And my personal opinion is that firefighters at this moment, they understand quite well about the cooperation between different authorities, and especially between voluntary organizations. And I'm quite satisfied with the situation at this moment, but it isn't clear enough from my point of view.
Are these joint exercises one way to change the attitudes?
For sure, they are one way, but the basic job is done on those committees on a daily basis work, and those larger exercises, they are only the top of the hill. So my point of view, the most important thing is speaking together, planning together, acting together, phoning, keeping contact. That is my point of view.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Then what do you see as the biggest success of sea and coastal voluntary rescue services that other countries or regions could learn from or implement themselves?
Perhaps the most important, that's quite a large question, but if I'm looking from the rescue services point of view, the most successful thing is to understand that we have increased that understanding of cooperation, and we are trusting our voluntary organizations. As I showed that picture, that almost half of our boats are taken care of by voluntary fire brigades. So that is most, from my point of view, the greatest success, that we trust each other and we rely that everyone is doing their job as dealt.
Great, thank you very much, Juha Virta. It was a pleasure to have you here.
Okay, thank you.
And as we learned from Juha's presentations, in Finland we have several non-governmental organizations engaged in rescue services as well as in voluntary oil spill response, more specific. WWF Finland is one of them, and it has well-organized response troops and a training program for volunteers. So next, Conservation Officer Teemu Niinimäki will tell us more about their involvement and activities.
Okay, good afternoon on my behalf also. Can you see my presentation now?
Yes.
And first of all, I would like to answer to that question about the barriers of coming into the voluntary work. I would say that in WWF, the only barrier is that we can't organize enough trainings or exercises or basic oil spill response courses to all the volunteers that would like to participate. That is, we don't have resources enough, because as Juha said, there's plenty of people, motivated people, and we are doing close cooperation with the authorities, and the atmosphere in this voluntary section is great at the moment, and there's plenty of volunteers coming from doors and windows. So resources of organizing more activities is the biggest problem. I don't know which would be the level that we would be, everything would be fine and we wouldn't need any more volunteers, but the resources is big question at the moment, and funding of course also.
And that's definitely a political question. Like you have said, that there are these political discussions going on, and he hopes that the voluntary effort will be valued in these discussions.
Yes, political discussion and the funding of oil spill response in general in Finland is big question at the moment, but we are not talking about that issue. And in this webinar, we are focusing in voluntary oil spill response, at least in my presentation. So maybe I start. My subject is about WWF response training, preparedness, and things like that. First of all, about myself, my name is Teemu Niinimäki and I work as a conservation officer in WWF Finland, and I work in our Finnish nature program with many species conservation issues, but also this voluntary work coordination, organizing that. And one of our big voluntary work thing is oil spill response, and we are organizing a lot of exercises and trainings every year, and there is about 300 to 400 people participating to our courses every year. So this is quite huge thing at the moment, and I will tell you more about it in my next slides. If you have any questions, please ask, put them in the chat box, and I will answer them after my presentation. Let's see if I can the next slide.
Not yet.
Okay. Now?
Yes.
So some basic information. Why are volunteers even needed in these incidents? In large incidents, the oil will almost every time reach also the shoreline. For example, if we think about the situation in Gulf of Finland, all the transportation between, for example, Helsinki and Tallinn, if the tanker crashes there, it won't take even days. It can take only hours to oil when the oil reaches shoreline, and when it's on the shore, it's much more expensive and time consuming to collect it, and the easiest way would be, of course, pump it straight from the tanker. It's much cheaper and much faster way, but almost every time the oil is also coming to the shoreline, and it's really time consuming, and it will take, when we are talking about these big spills that we are doing preparedness models for, it will take at least months or even years to collect all the oil away, and authorities in Finland or in any other country don't have all the manpower to do this work, so they need some extra manpower to help. And from past experience, we also know that people will show up. They will see the news, see the headlines, see the oiled beach and suffering animals. Everybody wants to help. And they might not keep in mind at the moment that when they are coming to help, they are dealing with highly toxic chemicals that can be really dangerous to handle without certain equipment and also coordination and leading how to do it and know how to do it, how to handle this whole project. Without training and guidance, volunteers can even slow down or hinder the spill response operations, and that is something that we don't want to do. But if the volunteers are well trained, well coordinated, they can be helpful and efficient, and really an extra resource for authorities that have so many other things to do at the moment when the spill happens. So these are the reasons why WWF Finland started this oil spill response work in 2003. We want to be as a link between volunteers and authorities. We want to offer volunteers a safe and coordinated way to participate in response work. And we want to do it the way that it benefits all. We call ourselves as a service provider in this case. And we have been lucky that there hasn't been any huge spills in the coastal areas of Finland or in Baltic Sea in general in few decades, but we have participated to few minor spills that are listed under. There's Raahe 2014, 2017 there was minor spill in Oulu, and the latest one 2019 in Sipoo nearby Helsinki. But if we compare these spills to the accidents and preparedness models that we are preparing for, we are talking about tens of thousands of tons of oil leaking from the tankers. In Raahe, for example, that has been our biggest project. We were there for a week, and we had like 100 volunteers there working for a week, and the total amount of oil that had leaked was something between 4 and 5 tons. So it's nothing compared to this high-risk tanker disasters. At the moment, we have about 10,000 volunteers in our troops. It's a big number. It's great, and we want to always say that we have 10,000 volunteers. They are signed in, so most of them are so-called passive members. They haven't been in our trainings, but we can trust that they are coming if the huge accident happens. We have trained about 2,700 of those volunteers. And as I said in my previous slides, we are supporting the authorities in the spill. We are always working under the supervision of authorities. We are not all the time asking from the authorities what to do. We want to work as independent as we can, but we are always need to have the authorities above us, and they are responsible for the whole operation. And also, we are doing this close cooperation with other NGOs. As Juha already said, that there's an active voluntary or an NGO network in Finland, and we are all working under the Finnish Voluntary Rescue Services. And the other NGOs that are close to oil spill response in Finland, of course, WWF, and then there's this National Defense Training Association in Finland and Marine Search and Rescue Association, and also this Finnish Air Rescue Society. And we have done a lot together already. We have had many successful projects. The latest was this oil spill project that ended a year ago, and we are continuing all the time our good cooperation. I think that Mika will also tell you more about this voluntary rescue services and this voluntary management in general in his presentation after mine. Well, this is basically what oil spill response shoreline cleanup is all about. Yes, different kind of equipment that we are using. This equipment that we are using, it's depend on the oil type. Is it light oils or heavy oils? We can use these brushes, absorb wipes, things like that. It's pretty simple work and very time consuming, as you can imagine from these pictures. And here you can see a picture of one group working area. What are they doing when they are going to collect oil from the shore? The aim of this cleanup operation is that to restore the area to the state it was before the accident. Of course, we can't get rid of all the oil. There will be some oil left after we have finished our operation, but we will take most of it away from the beach. And when we are cleaning the shore, it is important to ensure that the clean areas are not contaminating the project. So that's why we restrict the oiled area from the clean areas. And always when our group members, oil collectors are going away from the oiled area, they are going through this cleaning point where they are taking off all the oiled equipment. So these are the ways that we can be sure that we won't spread the oil any wider when we are doing this work. And this is an area where one group is working. One group consists about 10 group members. One is a group leader and 9 members that are collecting the oil. Some of them are on the clean area assisting from there, and most of them are collecting the oil to the buckets and then removing it to the clean areas where we have one huge collecting point where rescue services will take care of the oiled waste. And here you can see our equipments that we are using. Personal protective equipments first, waterproof, oil-resistant pants and jackets, disposable overalls. This model that you can see in the picture, they are a bit lighter that we are using at the moment, so that they overall will also be at least a bit oil resistant. Of course, when you are using it for a couple of hours in conditions that I showed you earlier, the oil will go through it, but you will use at least 3 to 4 overalls per day. So when they are getting oiled, you can get rid of them and get a new one. Rubber boots are used, rubber gloves, and they are taped. Rubber gloves are taped to the sleeves, and the boots are also taped, so you can't get oil to your skin, for example. And we are also doing oiled wildlife response in Finland, and we have been active in this work from the year 2006. And we are the only NGO in Finland that is also doing this. We have a lot to do if you think about our working when we are coordinating the shoreline cleanup and also assisting in this or taking care of leading this wildlife response work. So we are happy that we are part of this European Oiled Wildlife Assistance network called Eurova, where from that group we can get experts from Europe to help us in these situations where we have thousands of oiled birds coming, and we must wash them and clean them, and first take a medical check to them, and then wash them and dry them and save them. So we have a lot to do with the wildlife response also. And we are focusing on the voluntary work, but we are also developing the wildlife response in Finland together with officials and international experts. We are having this coordination group where we have all the authorities from Finland and other organizations like Sea Life and Korkeasaari Zoo also participating to our coordination group, and there we are developing this but oiled wildlife response in Finland. And here you can see a picture of our bird cleaning unit. It's a movable unit consisting 3 containers, and we can transport them to the oiled areas or nearby the oiled areas. For example, take them to some kind of warehouse and put the whole rehabilitation center, for example, to a warehouse, and this mobile unit is the heart of our oiled wildlife rehabilitation center. And Juha showed you pictures about this structure of our work and how voluntary organizations are linked to the whole oil spill response organizations. We are working under the municipalities or rescue services. I don't think that it's already decided where we are working, who's our supervision, which official, but it might be municipalities or rescue services. Then there is leader of voluntary work, and then management and operative activities and supporting activities. And by operative activities, I mean the beach cleaning and also oiled wildlife response, and WWF takes care of those activities. Then we have these supporting activities, transportation, equipment service and maintenance, accommodation, catering, and first aid. And those are really important to us. And this is the reason why we are so closely linked to the whole voluntary rescue service network, that we need assistance to these supporting activities. We can't do everything by ourselves. We need a lot of support from the authorities and also from other NGOs. Well, here's the alert or alarm system, how it goes if accident happens and authorities need our help. Rescue department will call to the voluntary rescue service, and then they will send a message to us, our conservation officer, for example, me, and there's an arrow to the rescue department because we need a lot of information before we can start the work, and we will be in close contact with the rescue department when we are at least at the first stage on this operation. We need a lot more information before we can alert our volunteers, shoreline cleanup troops, and oiled wildlife response troops, and also our experts. For example, in wildlife response, there's a lot of veterinarians, ornithologists, other experts that can be alarmed to help us. And here's just a slide about our cooperation with authorities, how important it is that we do trainings and exercises together before the accident, and what do we need when we are in the accident, what information we need from the authorities. First of all, contact number from the rescue department. We can't go anywhere without the contact to the rescue department. That can be, we can have this in WWF, this contact person, or it can be from the voluntary rescue services, but somebody from the voluntary sector must have the contact number. So we won't be bothering authorities only in cases when it's necessary, but we need this contact anyway. And then we need more information about the quality of the oil, toxicity and collectability, and we need permission from the authorities to get into the contaminated area. We won't go anywhere without the permission. Then we need information about possible no-go zones, priorities, if there's nature conservation areas, if it's a bird migration time, nesting places somewhere nearby. Those are the places where we start the shoreline cleanup work, and of course collecting wildlife first in those hotspot areas. And then this is important, this number of volunteers needed in timetable of next 1 to 4 days. I know that it can be hard to estimate how many volunteers are needed, how the whole process is proceeding, but we need this information because we are all the time collecting new volunteers coming in, and some are going out. Our volunteers are doing this work for at least, minimum is at least 1 day, and then they can go home. But anyone can't just participate for a few hours because it will take too much resources. So everybody are staying at least for 1 day, and we need to know all the time what is the situation next days, at least for a few days ahead, what to do. Then, of course, we need information about the supporting activities. Is there a need for assistance in transportation or catering or accommodation, for example? These are things that also voluntary rescue services, the head of the whole voluntary work, can take care of and ask for if these are needed. But anyway, it must be taken care of before we can start. Or so, and if there is oiled wildlife already seen in the area, those are of course our priorities. If it's a cold weather, for example, if it would happen today, the oiled wildlife, there wouldn't be much oiled wildlife taken care of in few days because they would all get cold and die. So these are our priorities at the first place if they are already seen in the area. who's covering the costs? Principle is that WWF oil spill response volunteers do not have to cover any costs resulting from the response operations. This is something money things must be decided before we can start. I don't know how much time I have left.
I think we have to move to the next presentation.
Okay.
But maybe you can say one concluding issue if you want.
Well, I can show you just a few pictures about our oil spill response through activities. These are from Raahe. These pictures, we were there, as I said, for a week and collecting oil. And this is from the Ballex Delta exercise from last autumn. There we had volunteers doing shoreline assessment, search and collection of wildlife and shoreline cleanup work. And also supporting activities. I think that Mika will tell you about these activities in his presentation next. And if you have any questions, please send me an email or ask now. Thank you.
Thank you, Teemu. Can you add those links to the chat box?
Yes.
On your guidebooks?
Yes.
I think this was very impressive presentation. And also during oil spill, I learned that involving volunteers in oil spill response is not just an easy task. There has to be a lot of issues taken into care of, and the management requires a lot from the volunteers as well as from the authorities. And next, we have Mika Vilpo. He is an IT specialist with an impressive career, also as a volunteer at the Finnish Red Cross. He has contributed a lot to developing the digital systems in volunteer management and is currently the head of preparedness at the Turku branch. Next, he will speak about the management of volunteers in large-scale accidents and the lessons learned.
Thank you, and good afternoon from my side also. So my name is Mika Vilpo.
Mika, there is some sound coming out of some distractive. When you speak, it starts from the background.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but there is like, at least I can hear some.
Try to change.
Yes, there is some background noise.
Okay, let's see. I can skip my share and try the other mic. Let's see if this helps. So is this better?
Yes, it seemed to be better.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it works good.
Great. Okay, I share my screen again. So my name is Mika Vilpo, and I am a Red Cross volunteer. Started as a child and stopped. That's maybe one answer for the question: how can we get more volunteers like me that can't stop? Well, actually, I don't think that I have an answer for that. It's more of way of life than volunteering. But in Finland, I'm mostly involved in first aid, some disaster management and search and rescue operations. And I have been also working as an information management delegate in the international side of Red Cross. For my living, I'm an IT consultant doing stuff with our company's corporate customers, mostly related on the cloud side issues. In this presentation, it's more about lessons learned than the basic information, but I try to cover also the basics, that how I see this leading of volunteers in this scale of accidents or operations. I have divided this in two different parts. One is about the performance of the volunteers and how we can understand that performance. And when we understand the performance, that's also something that we need to give out for example, for the rescue officials, that they know, like Juha said, what they expect to get from our side. And the second part is about the leading of the volunteers And I have a couple of thoughts about on those subjects also. What we have done in previous exercises and between the exercises, we have been doing the performance evaluation, trying to understand the realistic timelines from ramp up to maintaining the situation that can take days, weeks, months. It's easy to get people to move when we are talking about, for example, Juha mentioned missing child operations. Okay, the lead time is maybe 1 hour, 2 hours, and the operation will last maybe hours, days, days in maximum, or maybe 1 week, but that's it. And getting volunteers in the very long-term operations is completely different story. And how can we estimate and understand how long can we maintain this kind of operation is something that we have been doing in the paper, and it's very hard to in real life exercise this kind of or create that kind of exercise that simulates events that occur maybe 1 month, and of course we hope that never we don't need of volunteer for that kind of operations, but we are still planning on those. While we are doing the evaluation, we are trying to create the most self-supporting units. Teemu mentions and Juha mentions in the organization, the maintenance, the leadership, that only thing that the official need to give to the volunteers is the task, nothing else. Please go and clean this shore. And then volunteers can lead themselves, maintenance themselves, get catering, transport, and so on. And we have been also identifying what are the things that we need from outside, if that is maybe the officials or something that we need to rent or so on. And this is also part of the exercise that we have been doing by doing this performance evaluation. The second part is more about the leadership capabilities development. Thinking or rethinking how we are managing our volunteers. Is there some aspects that can be more optimized to get the actual work maybe easily done or faster done? And my maybe most passionate of these topics is identifying the skills of the volunteers, because we understand that we are training volunteers to do something. Okay, then we know what we have been trained, and we can expect that the volunteers know how to do that. But what we are not understanding is what they are doing in their real life, like normally. What are their professionals? Do they have any other hobbies? Do they have some skills that might be useful for our cause? And that's something that's it's very interesting to think and try to understand. Briefly about the voluntary rescue services that Juha and Teemu also already mentioned. So in Finland, we have this voluntary rescue service that is coordinated by Finnish Red Cross. It's formed from 54 organizations, and in currently in our alarm system there is more than 1,000 alarm groups or teams that consist 11,000 volunteers, and that are the people inside of this rescue or alarm system called Ohto. And I think that most of, for example, WWF volunteers are not in the Ohto, so that's why the numbers don't add up. The voluntary rescue services promise to officials is to give them trained and organized people to help in need. And we are emphasizing the trained and organized. So the authorities know what they get when they call to the voluntary rescue services. Normally, the most used cases are search and rescue missions for missing people that are police-led, and also some evacuation assistance, for example, in fires, in forest fires or large building fires. That are the most alarmed tasks currently. So if we are thinking about the performance of the volunteers, and we have different topics on this, and trying to understand the timelines. As I mentioned before, the ramp-up time, how fast this capability is available. This is a real document on the right-hand side. Unfortunately, it's Finnish, but in top of this, if I can highlight it here, there says that the ramp-up time is something from 3 hours to 2 days. So, and the topic is cleaning up the shoreline, for example. We understand that in 3 hours from the call, we have maybe 6 persons doing the reconnaissance on the shores, and maybe after 12 hours or 24 hours, we have first team or group or platoon of people ready to clean up the shores. And that kind of understanding that is available every day in the year is very hard. We understand that for example, if the weather is nice and it's maybe vacation time, there might be more people, but this is something that we promise every time, every day to the officials. We are also trying to understand what the volunteers can do. In this case, we are telling that we can recognize the shores and try to understand how many oiled birds are in the shores, for example. We can collect the birds, we can collect or clean up the shores. And these are the capabilities that we are telling the authorities that if you call us, this is something that we can do, maybe something else, but this is something that we promise to you. And when we are calculating or estimating the timelines and so on, the human resources, how much volunteers do we need to promise 10 persons in 12 hours? In the search and rescue operations, we know that if we need 15 people, then we need to alert 100 to get them the 15 people to arrive in 1 hour. Because of course, the people are volunteers, they are not always available, and so on. And this kind of math is based on experience and helps us to understand what are the real capabilities in our case. Then we are also in this kind of performance evaluation telling that, okay, we are self-supporting and we can do our own food, our own leadership. We only need that you point us at the place where you want the volunteers to be. And we can provide, or we need some catering, transport and accommodation and so on. And these are the things that we are trying to understand based on different scenarios. And this is only one that is now in this right-hand side. But my first key takeaway from this presentation is the knowledge of the volunteer skills is something that we can all try to improve. Some have quite good knowledge already, but I'm quite sure that this is something that we all in everywhere can improve and try to understand what are the skills that are hidden from the organization and how we can utilize that also. continuing on the volunteer leadership, we have been doing also optimization on this, and the current idea is that we have this Ohto that has the alarm groups already, and we can alert people based on the group's abilities. So, for example, a group says that they can do transportation, or they can clean up shores, or they can search missing people, or so on. And in large scale situations, we need to understand more about the volunteers who are coming than the Ohto currently gives us. So we have made an electronic form that is sent out for the people who answer the call from Ohto alarm system, and it's longer, or like a pre-registration form. We are asking name and professional language skills and so on. The information that the leaderships or leaders or group formation officers can use when they are planning that, okay, we are getting 10 people with this kind of skills, and we have this kind of task already available, and before the people arrive in the scene, we already understand that what group should they go when they arrive. And Teemu talk about the quick training of new volunteers. That is something also to think about when thinking about in this kind of large scale accidents that media will write about, and there will be like new volunteers coming up. So yes, hello, I want to help. I never do this, but can I help? And we need to have some kind of system to get that that potential available also in the helping of this operation. Then also lessons learned, visualizing all the data that we have. Even if we have a task or groups or something, we have in this picture, this is from the Balax Delta exercise. We had electronic whiteboard based on Miro. There is a different solutions also available. It's like a large whiteboard that you can put stickers and pictures like you see here. And we have different kind of information. We have our own organization chart. There's some maps, predictions of volunteer amounts, official communication plan, and so on. And this is something that is or can be used in the volunteer leader center. And as it is a digital version, we can also share it to the officials, that so they can see how we are progressing in our situation without needing to call us in every hour, for example. Of course, the meetings are still needed, but they can always check that, okay, volunteers are doing this and that, looks good. I hate this kind of pictures, but as others, so also the organization charts, this is the same thing, but it's focusing on the volunteer operations center and how we can see the needed people in this kind of operation. And of course, the situation size changes, and the needs changes on different phases of the operation. There might be more need of persons in the ramp-up phase, and then when we are only maintaining the situation, so to say, there might be a little less people. But there is one leader, there might be a vice leader, and also some secretary. We understand that the situation picture is very key thing to have. So there is one officer for that. There might be need for information management. For example, in the shoreline cleanup, we might getting some pictures from the sites or shores, and processing that kind of information is one task. Then we need some experts. For example, in this shoreline case, one who understands how the shore is cleaned. This volunteer leader doesn't need to know the exact things to consider, because he has the experts to consult if needed. And then the key is to have the support organization about the catering, transport, security, accommodation, and so on. And there might be also different team to welcome then arriving volunteers and form the groups. And key takeaway on this part that we have been seeing in many exercises is that the visualization is the key, and it doesn't depend on either you are using the electronic form or sticky notes like in this picture, but visualizing the situation, the task, the groups, and so on. Because for my understanding, the picture tells more than 100 words. So, and this kind of visualization is also, if it's done electronically, easy to share to the officials. And that's something that we have been doing, and the officials were very pleased on this kind of approach. I'm wrapping up. If you have any questions, please write them in the chat box. And there is also a larger guide on this kind of leading or organizing volunteers that is available on that link. I can put that also in chat, and I think you can get these slides after this presentation.
Thank you a lot, Mika. This was fascinating and again a lot to learn for someone who is not so much involved in oil spill response. There is one question in the chat box, and I will also write you another one. But at this point, we will move to the last presentation as the time is running out. So the Lithuanian Red Cross was also one of the active partners in the oil spill project. The organization is a prominent player in Lithuania and has great experience and skills in volunteer management. However, oil spill response was only recently added as part of their disaster preparedness plan. And now we get to hear what kind of a process it has been to start a new branch of expertise. Emilia Uunesakalauskaite, National Disaster Coordinator from the Lithuanian Red Cross, please, the stage is yours.
Hi, hello, thank you for introducing. Pleasure to be here and talk. Many great ideas have been told, and well, from our side, we can just tell the journey of organization that has never worked with oil spills before joining this project, oil spill project, that where we met with Minna and other partners. So definitely this project brought a lot of experience and knowledge on oil spills, as well as spillovers on other type of preparedness to disasters. So a little correction of how you introduced me, how you introduced Lithuanian Red Cross. Actually, before starting oil spill disaster preparedness of Lithuanian Red Cross was very, let's put it like this, insignificant. And actually, interestingly enough, this oil spill project, Interact project, brought this broader preparedness, not only to oil spills, but other type of preparedness too. So that is interesting, how very humanitarian organization got prepared for disasters looking first to oil spills. Well, nevertheless, we are better prepared now, and just a year ago, I joined the Lithuanian Red Cross, and simultaneously I joined Oil Spill, and I thought, oh, what it has to do with Red Cross? It was a question, and then many institutions in Lithuania, they asked the same question. So that was even harder to answer than when everyone is asking the same question. But then being part of this project, actually seeing, well, leading Red Cross in the region, which is Finnish Red Cross, you know, take all the experiences, the best of experiences, we found our role too. So I'll tell you a little bit about this journey. So yes, our first steps and challenges as a newcomer, spontaneous volunteer topic, cooperation with important actors, lessons learned, and remaining challenges after this time in the project, and the future avenues. So, well, first of all, first step of a newcomer, as I told you, well, there have been probably many of them, and it was not only a new knowledge, but also a new role. And when I say new knowledge and new role, it was not only that, oh, how do you work here? How do we go around? It was also like organizational establishment in front of other actors that, well, we have a role here and we can actually help. So this role was defined with time, that this humanitarian organization can actually be in this very technical disaster by providing volunteers and providing the coordination of volunteers. And as a few colleagues just before me mentioned, this is very these types of disasters are usually very time consuming and human resource consuming, and usually they don't go away in 1 week. And then as we have these all consuming variables, the need for volunteers begins. So that's how we established our role as a provider of volunteers and coordination of them. When we could define a role, we also had to define the functions and the suitability for voluntary work. Where are the boundaries? And well, I think not only in this disaster, these type of emergencies, other disasters too, that's very important for any humanitarian organization providing volunteers to understand the boundaries between institutions and the voluntary work. And that was a very good lesson for other preparedness too, that first responder is institution always, and we are only called when we are needed with our help, following the instructions and following the requirements, and not starting dig the oil or do something else without a request from institutions. So this brought us into this new place between the other actors, and not only we became a bit more significant in front of others, we also found our place in this national context in disasters. So first of all, what we faced, it was spontaneous volunteers. Well, we had experiences in gathering spontaneous volunteers for other types of emergencies. However, those emergencies were not as risky, let's put it like that, and yeah, not so skill specific, I would say. And but yeah, first of all, the problem was yeah, risks for health, the insurance, specific coordination, and the participation and being in this type of project for oil spill disasters actually led us to rethink and think first of all about our work in possible work in other types of disasters. And this actually brought a lot of institutional knowledge, organizational knowledge to our Lithuanian Red Cross and disaster management program about how we can ensure what are the specific requirements, how we're going to actually manage mass of people that work in the risky environment. So and this in the Lithuanian context, the spontaneous volunteer question was, well, in oil spill disasters, there is no such as per se big significant volunteer fire brigades. There are just a fire rescue department that has limited number of staff, and we would come as a first responder and supplier of the volunteers. I think the equivalent would be in Finland would be the voluntary rescue service. We would be just Lithuanian Red Cross. Under us, there is no other organizations. It's only us. In Finnish version, it's voluntary rescue service. You have around 60, right? 60 organizations under. So we took up this role of a big challenge, being relatively still small, unexperienced in disasters, and we start growing from there. And actually, interestingly enough, starting with oil spills and thinking, oh, how do we put volunteers in dangerous environment, the dangers and risks for the health, and actually starting we started to draft it up, think about, put it in paper, all the rules and all the specific operations required for such type of work. Well, and interestingly enough, after that, only a few months later, other disasters followed in Lithuania that were not related to oil spills, but the organizational knowledge about spontaneous volunteers, exactly from this type of oil spill project and preparedness for oil spills, let us be pretty successful in other types of disasters. So as dear colleagues before mentioned, the spontaneous volunteers in oil spill disasters, yeah, we had many questions how to do it safely and successfully, but the main questions were how to communicate well to the spontaneous volunteers, people that come from the backgrounds of no disaster preparedness, how to communicate the risks and how to communicate the tasks very clearly, that the volunteer that comes to the disaster site knows exactly what to do, and there is no space for interpretation of the tasks. So that also brought us knowledge and spillovers to other type of disaster preparedness. And also, yeah, as I mentioned before, the safety and insurance. That led, interestingly enough, to other development in our organization. Again, as colleagues mentioned before, in such type of disasters that requires big coordination and effectiveness, there is a need of leadership. And if we are asked to provide the volunteers and provide the hands, we also have to provide the management of those hands. We do not expect the institution will manage all those volunteers that we provide, from people that don't know what they're doing. They need all the training and all the preparedness, registration, insurance, and so on. So as we do not expect institutions to coordinate those volunteers, we take up this role. But also from Lithuanian Red Cross, we also maybe are not as resourceful of staff that could do it for months. So from there and other reasons as well, we started forming this disaster preparedness and response teams. And currently, when we started with oil spill, we had just 30 volunteers in Klaipėda. It's a seaside region which was the most relevant for all spill disasters. But then we quickly and swiftly grew to now 120 people, disaster response teams, preparedness and response teams that are now spread in 6 different cities, and they are, of course, are not focused only to all spills, but other disasters too. But seaside city, Klaipėda, they have this focus more for seashore and sea accidents. So that was a successful development, I would say, of a participation in this all spill project. So another spillover, successful, positive spillover, was a cooperation with relevant actors. And the relevant actors are, of course, first of all, fire rescue department that is responsible for action and the response in the case of disaster. So from this project, we started very close cooperation with the fire rescue department of Klaipėda. That led to national cooperation with the national fire rescue department and led to many other projects and initiatives and exercises that are not related to oil spills. But everything started from here, from oil spills, and as well other relevant actors besides fire rescue was, of course, partners, Red Cross partners around the Baltic Sea. Especially big thanks to Finnish Red Cross, Danish Red Cross, but Finnish Red Cross to learn from you a lot and actually build our capacities by taking you as an example. Again, in oil spills and other disasters too. And then we got an opportunity to be around and learn from fire rescue departments of other countries. So that was also big contribution to our capacity building. So the lessons learned from being in this context of all spill disasters was, first of all, harmonize and align work with the institutions in disasters. So what I want to say with the harmonize and align work is that we work together, and there is one leader, which is institution, and we, in order to be effective and as safe to our staff and our volunteers, we need to harmonize and align our work before the disasters, and therefore achieve success in responding to disasters. Lessons learned: continued management of spontaneous volunteers. So that I guess it was one of the biggest lessons learned from all spills, and actually all spill disaster is a very great example. A key study could be, if someone wants to study spontaneous volunteer management, it has everything: large time scale, requirement of a lot of volunteers, risks involved, insurance needed. And this management of spontaneous volunteers led us to build a solid foundation for other disasters, which we used even in this current situation. In the region, war in the Ukraine, we had a lot of spontaneous volunteers joining us, and continued organizational preparedness for specific disasters, which is all spill. So, well, this preparedness cannot be limited to just operations. So we know what we do. We dig, we manage, we build a tent. I know register volunteers. It's not only operations, it's also support services, because it's not one-day disaster. And that's a good lesson learned, that when you are preparing, you're also preparing to support your own operations. And that was, by being in this project, learning from all the partners, that was another lesson learned. So the remaining challenges and future avenues, the remaining challenges, the experience of exactly this type of disaster, which is all spills. That is very much needed, never enough. And the remaining challenge as well is still management of spontaneous volunteers. Even though we build a foundation, we still see the challenges that came up in other type of disasters, but if it came in other type of disasters, probably it will come up in all spill disasters too. So it's also constant growing, and we are, as a very young, well, Lithuanian Red Cross is not a very young organization, but this type of pathway, which is disasters, response to disasters, and preparedness to disasters, it is relatively young, and this mission to successfully manage spontaneous volunteer is still in progress, and we're still working on it, and it's our top priority. Future plans. Currently, we have just above 30 volunteers, especially just above 30 volunteers in Klaipėda. Our plan for this year is to have 60 volunteers in Klaipėda trained on oil spills. Currently, part of our volunteers is trained on oil spills, and they know this type of disaster from A to Z in theory. Some of them had an opportunity to actually be in training, in the exercises, so they have better knowledge. But building this not only organizational knowledge of staff, but also knowledge of volunteers to know exactly what kind of disaster it is and how to pass this knowledge on spontaneous volunteers that they have no clue what is oil spill, what is oil, what are the risks to be successful. So future plans, yes, continue to be 250 volunteers trained on spontaneous volunteer management in Lithuania. So these exact people that can be used in these type of disasters to train, to pass the knowledge on spontaneous volunteers in case of disaster. So currently we have 120. And then continuation of exercises with Fire and Rescue Department in Klaipėda, and the advocacy of Lithuanian Red Cross role in these type of disasters. So we are moving forward, and again, thanks for good kickoff start of this oil spill project. We are moving forward with the advocacy of Lithuanian Red Cross role in general in disasters, and National Fire Rescue Department is seeing us now as a good, proper, effective partner to be in disasters, to work aside, but this specific role in this specific disaster, oil spill disaster, is still needs more advocacy. But I'm very sure that our cooperation with Fire Rescue Department in other topics will bring us as well to successful cooperation in oil spill disasters too. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening. Thank you for volunteers from the Lithuanian Red Cross that joined this event to learn more. Very happy about that. And well, if you have any questions, please.
Thank you, Emilia. That was really inspiring presentation. What kinds of tips would you give to an NGO that is starting oil spill response activities?
Wow, many, but probably, yeah, first learn in theory what kind of disaster is that. And yeah, because all disasters vary, and before attending exercises in Denmark and Finland, there have been so many, I would say, wrong images about what are the risks. So first, yeah, theoretical knowledge, but also that knowledge should come from professionals in the institutions that you're going to work alongside. So that probably would be the first advice. Learning about it and finding your role.
I think during oil spill, unfortunately, we were not able to organize as many international events as was originally planned.
Yeah, very sad.
But luckily we were able to communicate online. And I think maybe in the future there could be even more online training and exercises. I would like to ask the same question from Teemu and Mika, if you are still here, that what kind of advice would you give to new NGOs in oil spill response?
Well, I think that first of all, you must have good connections to the authorities and their permission to start this work, because without that, you just can't do anything. And also funding is also really important. When you are making commitments about participating to this kind of work, you need funding for that, and these are aspects that must be taken care of before you can start planning your, well, maybe you can start planning, and of course you can grow in this process, but those are important things.
Yeah, and I would like to add also that just try to find some other NGOs already doing this and network, because you can learn from each other.
And Teemu and Mika, I understood that during the COVID pandemic, the online courses advanced, at least somehow. How did that affect your work?
Well, we have had many webinars and they have been successful, and now we are organizing our basic OSP response course partly as a webinar model. So we have also practical trainings, and the webinar will stay there. No matter if there's COVID or not, we will use it in the future also. And that also gives us new possibilities to start to more international collaboration. For example, at the Baltic Sea area, we have discussions with, for example, Estonia Fund for Nature, that we could organize more together in webinar model. So that will give us more possibilities, definitely.
Yeah. I also think that this is like the cliche, the new normal, but still it gives much more possibilities to get new volunteers when you don't need to travel so much.
Yeah, at this point, I want to thank all the speakers and our audience. I think we had a nice amount of people here, and it was really nice to see you one more time and hear your ideas and experiences on voluntary OSP response. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we also have another OSP response webinar coming up. It's on the 18th of May, and you are all welcome to participate. I will send the link to you on the chat box. I find it. There. So thank you all, and I hope we will see each other again.
Yep, thank you. Thank you for organizing it.